Fallout lore is some of the most well-documented video game lore out there. From comprehensive lore videos to detailed wiki pages and developer insights, Fallout lore almost feels like its own history subject. Because of this, it's rare for Fallout lore to be forgotten, but every so often, small tidbits do slip through the cracks, falling into the abyss of seldom visited wiki pages, buried in the bottom of Reddit threads and forums, not to be heard of or seen again. So let's talk about some of Fallout's long forgotten lore. Let's get into it. FEV as a cure. One of the most easily forgotten parts of Fallout's history is the true origin of the forced evolutionary virus. In the games, we see FEV as this horrific virus responsible for creating not only super mutants, but some other wasteland nightmares. But what is often forgotten is that it didn't start out that way. Originally, FEV wasn't really a weapon at all. The origins of the forced evolutionary virus were due to national fear. Fear of a deadly contagious disease, fear of potential biological warfare, and fear of a slow, invisible death. Before it became a tool for turning men into monsters, FEV was an attempt to save humanity from itself. The world of the 21st century was crumbling long before the bombs fell. In the chaos of the resource wars and collapsing alliances, a viral disease swept across the United States. It was called the New Plague. With symptoms of profuse sweating, swelling, and external hemorrhaging, the New Plague's deadly and contagious nature quickly led to a national quarantine in 2053. Folks needed to isolate. Life imitates art, you know? Anywho, faced with a virus that they couldn't contain, the US government threw its weight behind a last-ditch project, the Pan-Immunity Virion Project, or PvP. The goal was simple: engineer an immunity agent that could inoculate the American population against any biological threat, like the New Plague, whether it came from nature or some enemy laboratory. Westech, already a well-known defense contractor and powerhouse of military technology, was handed the contract. Scientists were told to do whatever it took. In the beginning, it looked like they might succeed. Their early prototypes provided effective immunity to genetic damage. But as more research and resources were put into the project, the Pan-Immunity Virion Project started to deliver unexpected results. Later iterations of the Virions didn't just prevent genetic damage, they changed people entirely. Cells regenerated faster, muscles grew denser, resistance to radiation and disease skyrocketed. The Pan-Immunity Virion wasn't creating stronger immune systems, it was creating stronger humans altogether. And that was the turning point. The military liaison for the project, a man named Major Barnett, swiftly ordered a shift in their mission. Immunizing citizens against potential bioweapons was no longer the priority. If the virus could evolve humans into something tougher, something deadlier, then it now had military value. The Pan-Immunity Virion Project was quietly renamed the Forced Evolutionary Virus Project, and the search for a cure became a race to build the perfect soldier. Strength, endurance, and resilience took precedence over preserving humanity's original form. Ethics were stripped away, viewing the potential success of FEV as a way to end global tensions. I mean, imagine an army of Derrick Henrys or LeBron Jameses. Now make them 2 feet bigger and add more muscle mass. Oh, and they're immune to radiation and bioweapons. I don't think anyone would want to face that. At the end of the day, a cure for the New Plague wouldn't come. Instead, the transformation from PvP to FEV would signify the start of painful and often deadly experiments across the country at various Westech sites and locations, as the desire to make the ultimate super soldier took precedence. Today, it's easy to look at super mutants and centaurs and the likes and only see the destruction and perversion that came with the forced evolutionary virus. You don't often see or read or hear about what came before it. And that makes sense. The new plague isn't a very well documented piece of Fallout lore, only appearing a handful of times in the mainline canon series. And so, what is often forgotten by fans is that one of the game's most infamous bits of lore, the forced evolutionary virus, never originated as a super soldier program, but rather it started out with the goal of curing a deadly disease. And if that doesn't perfectly encapsulate the common tropes of the pre-war world, I don't know what else does. Canadian vaults. One of the most easily forgotten pieces of Fallout's lore is that not all vaults were American. In fact, there were supposedly vaults built in Canada, but you'd barely know it unless you dug deep into the franchise's lore. So everyone already knows that the American government in the Fallout universe annexed their northern neighbors, Canada. Under the excuse of securing the Alaskan pipeline and tightening national defense, American forces moved in, occupied the country, and eventually folded it into becoming a US territory. Soon, Canada's independence was gone. And so, with Canada now under American control, the US didn't hesitate to extend its domestic programs northward, and that included Vault-Tec's Vault program. Evidence for this comes from a lone letter in Fallout 3. Titled Letter from Vault-Tec, it reads, "Dear safety-conscious citizen, we are writing to inform you that your family was not selected for inclusion in your chosen Vault-Tec facility. Your deposit has been retained, and your application added to a waiting list for your preferred vault. In the interest of your family's security in the event of a minor nuclear event, please consider relocating to one of these areas where Vault-Tec facilities are available without a waiting list. For a full list of Vault-Tec facilities with available accommodations in exciting locales such as Oklahoma and newly annexed Canada, contact your local Vault-Tec representative. Vault-Tec wishes you and your family the best of luck in the uncertain future. Best regards, Vault-Tec." So, while there's not much evidence for the fact, it's clear that Vault-Tec vaults did make their way to the Great White North. This would be slightly expanded on in the Fallout TV show. In the scene with Barb and Bud speaking with various CEOs about investing in their own company's sponsored vaults, a map of North America can be seen. Each light represents a vault. Notice how some are beyond the border of the United States, in Mexico and Canada. While Mexican vaults are a new idea, the existence of Canadian vaults go all the way back to Fallout 3. I know countries outside of the US don't always get a lot of lore. Fallout is a very American-centered franchise. But sometimes the lore that we do get is often just forgotten. Canada had some Vault-Tec vaults. I suppose a good question to ask, though, is what sorts of experiments did they have? A vault kept at refrigerator temperatures? Or a vault where you can't say sorry? Better yet, divide the vault into two factions, one English-speaking, the other French-speaking. Maybe floors made of ice. Let me know what you think. Vault 15 Descendants. One of the easiest bits of Fallout lore to overlook is the tangled history of Vault 15, specifically the fact that it gave birth to both the New California Republic and some of the most vicious raider gangs the Wasteland has ever seen. See, when people think about the NCR, they see this faction fighting against the chaos of the Wasteland, laws, democracy, and the likes. And when they think of raiders, they think of the complete opposite: savagery, chaos, death. Lots of death. And yet, both the NCR and Cons, Jackals and Vipers, all come from the same place. They all come from Vault 15. Vault 15 was one of Vault-Tec's many social experiments. Unlike some of the more nightmarish vaults, its goal wasn't immediate destruction. Instead, Vault 15 was stocked with an extremely diverse group of people, all with radically different ideologies, all thrown together under one roof. The idea was to gather data and see how their society would work over the duration of the shelter period. You know, if they could actually form a functioning society despite their difference. Spoiler alert, it didn't go exactly well. Over time, tensions inside the vault bubbled up. Tensions turned into arguments, arguments turned into divisions, Divisions turned into factions. When the vault door finally opened, the people of Vault 15 didn't walk out into the wasteland hand in hand. They walked out, and they went their own way. The ones who wanted order and structure went on to form Shady Sands using the vault's old Garden of Eden creation kit. This tiny desert community would go on to grow into the new California Republic. The others obviously weren't too interested in rebuilding anything. They wanted power, maybe a bit of freedom, and seemingly definitely wanted revenge for every slight, real or imagined, that they'd suffered underground. These groups scattered into the desert, becoming some of the wasteland's first major raider tribes: the Khans, the Vipers, the Jackals. Groups that would go on to terrorize Shady Sands, the new California Republic, and the West Coast wasteland for decades. The wildest part about it, again, remains the fact that they all come from the same place. All of it, rooted in the same vault, the same shared trauma, the same miserable life underground. It's not something that the Fallout series often reminds people of. We see the Great Khans, descendants of the Khans, and the NCR duke it out in New Vegas, and yet if you weren't familiar with some of the franchise's early lore, you would have no idea that those who founded these two factions once shared a common living space. It's often an easily forgotten piece of history in the Western wastes. The other mutant viruses. This is perhaps the most obscure and most forgotten piece of Fallout lore in the entire franchise, something every developer and writer has seemed to either forget or intentionally have omitted for one reason or another. Buried deep in the old 1997 bones of Fallout 1 is a piece of lore so obscure, even a lot of hardcore fans miss it. I mean, it took me a couple hours of research to even find it for this video. And that is the phase-shifting virus and the gamma cyclotronic virus. They show up only once, tucked away in Vree's autopsy report holodisk, given to a vault dweller with 7 or more intelligence. The autopsy report documents Vree's findings after the Brotherhood of Steel discovered, in their words, an unusual creature. It turns out that this creature was one of the Master's supermutants. The report covers various scientific findings and documents some of the effects of the forced evolutionary virus, but it's in the test results section that 2 strange names can be found. Here's the excerpt. Radiation count 12 rads. Rabies test clean. Hydrochloric gas clean. Chlorine level 0.07%. Sulfuric content 0.02%. Phase shifting virus clean. Gamma cyclotronic virus clean. Forced evolutionary virus 2 severe overdose. Their inclusion in the autopsy report must mean that the Brotherhood are aware of these viruses and perhaps what they do to creatures they infect. And as they're listed right alongside the forced evolutionary virus, it stands to reason that they too, like FEV, are some kind of mutagenic viruses as well. But that's all we know about the 2 viruses. Their mere existence. That's it. It's never explained exactly what they do. Phase shifting sounds pretty sci-fi. I don't really know what that could entail, but gamma cyclotronic likely has something to do with radiation, as gamma radiation is the most common kind of radiation seen in the Fallout games. Still, regardless of what they do or what they are, the implication is clear. There were other potentially dangerous viruses out there in the wasteland. FEV wasn't the only mutagenic hazard. It definitely is the most well-known, but evidently it wasn't the only one. Now, I can guarantee that at least 60% of people watching right now have never heard of either of these viruses. I don't know how to prove that guarantee or whatever, but the phase shifting and gamma cyclotronic viruses have to be some of the most forgotten lore in all of Fallout. After all, they've only ever been mentioned once in 1997, and that was locked behind a holodisk that required a certain intelligence score to even acquire. It's a loose end, just dangling there, likely to never be pulled on again. And that wraps up 4 instances of forgotten Fallout lore. From unlikely roommates to viruses long lost to time, these bits of lore are rarely ever mentioned by fans, developers, or writers. Will we ever go to a Canadian vault? Probably not, and that's a damn shame. But that's all from me today, folks. If you liked the video, be sure to share and subscribe. Join the Discord. Have a good rest of your day. Cheers.
What have we here? You weren't who I was expecting. I'm disappointed.